I don't know how to describe this, and because I don't know how to describe it, I gotta talk my way through it. Which isn't to say that I don't get it. I mean, I get it. But who really gets this? I mean, really gets it. I've started this wrong. If I were in your position, which I was in your position, and by that I mean, I didn't know what I'm about to tell you. I wouldn't know what was coming. I mean, I was you. I was you, and then I found out what I know, and suddenly, I'm not me anymore. Or you. I'm not you either. I mean, I never was. I never was you, not really, but I'm telling you, if I didn't know what I know now, I'd be you. And I was you until I wasn't. My buddy Frank's got this football pool. It's college, it's pro, it's high school, but I don't care. If it's football, I'm watching, and if I'm watching, I'm betting. So it's fall, the games are starting, and Frank asked if I'm in for $1,000. It was $400 last season. I almost flipped. I mean, I want to put that much in, but I make peanuts at the grocery store. I unpack crates. It's minimum wage. Where can I get that kind of money? I start thinking about it, and here's what happened. I got to walk 4 blocks from my bus stop to work, and every day I'm passing that notice board at the college. You know, most of the time, it's college kids wanting a roommate or an ad for a study abroad program. But 2 months ago, there's a new notice. Volunteers wanted scientific study, participants paid $1,500. I thought my head was gonna snap right off. $1,500? You know how much money I can make in the football pool with $1,500? If I tell Frank to up it, hell, I could buy a damn car for all the money I win with that. 20 guys in my pool. I mean, multiply that by all the money they're throwing in, and I'm telling you. So I start thinking about the study, wondering what kind of study this is gonna be if they're paying that kind of money. I mean, this college is Ivy League. God only knows what kind of stuff they're studying over there. But I didn't care. I was about to get 1,500 smackers, and all I had to do was this dumb study. 1 month of being a lab rat, and I'm out of there exactly the way I went in, right? I mean, right? So I signed up. This is 2 months ago I'm talking. So when I say I'm different than I was before I started on the study, let me tell you, I'm not talking about I went on some intergalactic journey. I'm not talking they suited me up and threw me into the ocean in like the Mariana Trench place where weird fishy things live. No. I'm talking about a study about here and now. Right here on this planet, right here where I'm standing. I'm talking, they asked me to come to this lab, this specific kind of lab. So I go. First day, it's me and 15 other people, all different kinds of people. White people, black people, Puerto Ricans, Asians, mostly in their 20s or 30s. But one guy's like 60, and one woman, she's got to be 80 if she's a day. So we're all standing around in this room waiting for the study to start. And these 2 scientists show up. They welcome us. Then they pack us in a van and drive us to the airport. They put blindfolds on us. Then they fly us somewhere. I don't even remember how long we were on that plane because I couldn't see anything. After what felt like a couple of hours, I was pretty sure we're in the middle of nowhere. So we get off the plane, and they're leading us along really slow because we're still blindfolded. And they put us in a van and drive us to the middle of this field. And we get out. I'm telling you, it's a field, because when I walked out of the van, I was walking in what felt like grass. So now we're out of the van, and the scientists, they start talking. And they ask us to point north. My blindfold is still on, and I'm sweating like hell because it was a hot freaking day. And they tell us to point in the direction of north. I don't know what state I'm in. I don't know what town I'm close to. I can't even see where the sun is, just nothingness. So I think about it, and I say, what the hell? And I point. And the other guys in the study, forget it. We're all running into each other because we can't see anything. And then there's this pause. And the scientists, they ask us to point in the direction of home. I don't know where the hell I am. But I think about it, and I point. Then they gather us all up, and they fly us back home. And that was the first day. The thing that gets me about being in a study, they don't tell you what topic they're on. So I'm thinking they're studying disorientation. Like, you spin a kid around, blindfolded, and tell him to whack a piñata. Kid can't see, but he whacks the damn piñata anyway, right? Maybe that's what it's about. I think that's what I'm thinking. But really, I'm just in it for the cash. Or am I? Because I start thinking about it, and I want to know what it's about. And I ask them. They say they can't tell me. Next morning, I got to know what's going on. I knock on the lab door, and no one answers. So I open the door and grab their files, and I start looking. And what I find is this. They're studying magnetite. Now, magnetite is something that scientists normally see in rocks, but they aren't used to seeing it in living creatures. I'm not making this up. And what I'm telling you is magnetite is this stuff, these particles, and they exist in mollusks and bacteria and robins and cows and dogs, lobsters, worms, snails, frogs, newts. Anything that moves of its own free will, it's got magnetite in it. And what is magnetite? Magnetite are these particles that act like compass needles. Okay, let me simplify this. Birds, butterflies, whales, salmon, turtles, they all migrate to the same place year after year. But how? The magnetite allows them to see the Earth's magnetic field. They use magnetic north to navigate. Other animals have this magnetic sixth sense. Cows and deer, they line themselves up on a magnetic north-south axis, like they're controlled by the Earth's magnetic field, except their compass gets out of whack whenever they're close to a high voltage line. If they're close to a power line, they'll align with that instead. And dogs, you ever notice how they find a spot to pee, but then they'll turn around and face a different direction to do it? It's because they're aligning with magnetic north or a power line every single time. But here's the best part. Magnetite, we've got it too. Inside us, in our heads, and our hearts. So the reason why the scientists dragged us out in the middle of nowhere was to see if we had a magnetic sixth sense that works. They wanted us to use our magnetic sense and find north. And what's crazy is, in their files, you ready for this? Turns out most of the people in my group, They pointed in the right direction. They pointed north. So at this point, my heart's pounding out of my head because I feel really weird reading this stuff. And a lot of it was stuff I didn't understand. I mean, I'm talking to you about it now, but that's because I've done nothing since then but read up on it. But the reason I'm telling you at all is because you need to know this. You need to know it. So back to the study. Next day, I'm back in the lab, and they split up my group. Now, half of us go in this one lab, half of us go in the other one, and they're hooking us up to EKG and EEGs. I've got wires stuck to my head and my chest, and they start this kind of machine. I don't know what kind it is, but the scientists, they step out of the room, and suddenly there's this sound, but not a sound. A feeling, really? Like it should be a sound, but it's not. And I start to feel weird. Edgy, like something bad's about to happen. I start to feel like I gotta throw up, but I don't. I start feeling like the guys in my group, they're not good people. And this one girl, she starts breathing funny. I thought she was going through some sort of physical trauma, the noises she's making, but she says she's doing yogi breaths to calm her down. And after a while, she's doing better, but I still feel like hell, which is weird because we're not connected to the machines that's running. But it's pointed at our heads, straight at our heads, just all of us. And here's why we're hooked up to the EEG and EKG. They wanted to measure our brain waves and heart waves, to measure the electromagnetic waves coming from out of our bodies. Because look, an electromagnetic wave is created by any change in electrical voltage. So if you freak out about something, for example, your electrical voltage changes, and that's what the wave shows us. Our hearts are the greatest sender and receiver for electromagnetic information we have. And changes in electromagnetic fields from the earth, from outer space, from solar flares, I'm not making this up. Those changes affect human health in really big ways. There's this feedback loop between human beings and the earth's electromagnetic energetic system, and I'm getting ahead of myself. Back in the lab. After a couple minutes, they start asking these questions. The scientist says, there's this bridge. It might collapse any second. And your girlfriend, she's about to cross it. If you know she's gonna make it across okay, do you tell her not to cross it? At this point, I'm feeling like the ceiling's about to yaw down on my head. I'm feeling like there's poison in this room. Something is not right. And the scientist says, what's your answer? But I can't remember the question. So I start thinking really hard because I'm a good guy, okay? I'm the guy you call if you've got a problem. I'm the guy my friends call when they get bad news. I help people out to their car with groceries, not because I have to, but because life is hard. And some stranger helps you carry your stuff to your car, and it can change your whole day. I believe there's a right and a wrong, and I always know the difference. But I'm sitting there in this lab, and I can't answer the question. So I think about it, and what I say is this: does it matter? No harm, no foul, right? She's gonna make it across that bridge anyway, right? Right? So the scientist guy, he asked me more questions. Ethical stuff, like simple questions. But I get confused. I can't even answer sometimes. I just sit there and say, I don't know. They let us out of the lab, and it took me until the next day to recover. And when I did, I snuck back into the lab. Turns out that machine, it was sending out magnetic energy, and it was pointed at that part of our brains that makes ethical decisions. Here's what happened. When the electromagnetic field changed around our brains, it paralyzed our ability to make a moral judgment. And that was true for every other person in that lab. The only person who did a little better was that yoga girl. They don't know why, but something about her practicing being off balance and centering herself made it possible for her to answer the questions like a normal person. Because look, the other half of the people in the study, the ones in the other lab, they weren't magnetized. And every single one of them said they tell their girlfriend not to cross that bridge because that was the right thing to do. So I start looking around. I write down the studies those scientists list in their research, and I go out and find them. And I read them. And my head just gets blown open by what I read. The Earth has a magnetic field. And there are these electrons that are moving up from the center of the Earth up towards the ground. And lately, they don't know why, there are a lot more electrons moving out from the center of the Earth. You can look this up. I'm not kidding. And one of the things that's happening because of this is magnetic north is moving. Magnetic north. You've got a compass, right? And the compass has a north direction. Well, that compass needle is pointing at magnetic north, except that magnetic north is not standing still. It's moving. I mean, I don't want to overstate this here. It's always moving, right? But lately, since the year 2000, it started moving a hell of a lot more. And it's erratic. It's shifting all the time. And what that means is all of our maps, you know, that ships and airplanes use to navigate, they're not always working. Magnetic north moves and you don't know where you are. Your computer doesn't know where it is, because if you've got magnetic north tracked in one part of the world and you've based all of your maps on that one location and magnetic north just up and moves, then you don't know where the hell you are. And that's what's happening. And that's not all. When magnetic north moves, those little magnetite pieces in you, they notice. And they get confused. So here's the point. Magnetic north is moving from Canada towards Siberia, which means a planetary-wide magnetic field is moving. And it's affecting us a lot. But we don't realize it. That some countries, when there's a big change in the magnetic field, they announce it on the weather report, so that people know what the hell is happening. We should do that. We should definitely do that. Remember when I was in the lab and the scientists were moving electromagnetic fields? When that happens, the part of our brains that makes moral decisions is paralyzed. And that's what's happening now. If you were wondering why it seems like the planet's gone straight to hell regarding ethics, I'm here to tell you. This is why. This is why people can't think straight about simple moral questions. This is why there's nationalism all over the place. Formerly sane nations are suddenly pulling away from everyone else and deciding everything has to be their way. They're deciding that something out there doesn't feel safe. And so they're circling the wagons. They're closing down borders. They're deciding that people like them are the only good guys there are, and that people who aren't like them shouldn't be allowed. And let me tell you, this magnetic stuff, it's no joke. And it's not just coming from inside the Earth. There's this 11-year solar cycle, right? And there are geomagnetic storms from outside the Earth's atmosphere. And all of that affects and moves electromagnetic fields in and around us. Changes in the electromagnetic field coincide with high levels of crime and violence and terrorist attacks. Geomagnetic storms can cause strokes and heart attacks, and they increase mortality. Yeah, there was this worldwide study. They found that 500,000 strokes worldwide could be caused by a geomagnetic storm. 500,000 per year. I know, crazy, right? Stuff out there affects stuff in here. A geomagnetic storm is an electrical storm. Why is that important? Because an electrical storm out there can cause an electrical storm in us. That's what a stroke is. It's an electrical storm inside your body. Instability without causes instability within. And that's not all. When there are geomagnetic disturbances, there's a significant increase in suicide attempts, homicides, epileptic seizures, and hospital admissions for depression and mental illness. We've got to find ways to create stability inside us to protect us from the instabilities that happen out there. And here's the weird part. You ready? Remember that yoga girl in my study? Keep her in mind when I tell you this. Different people have different responses to changes in the magnetic field. And some people can respond in the opposite way. Some people can actually thrive. Like there are sudden spurts of creativity and discovery in art and architecture and science. And there are positive changes in the way society works. People have breakthroughs. They make massive discoveries about science and nature and life. They invent entirely new ways of thinking. They make and create unprecedented forms of art and music and philosophy and literature, all when the electromagnetic fields are disturbed. It's like an influx of energy. If you can ground yourself and harness it, you can be better than you are now. But if you can't handle it when things like that shift, it could kill you or hurt you or make you want to hurt somebody else. I mean, hell, 500,000 strokes per year? And that's everywhere on this planet. I know. I was knocked out too. My name's Joe, by the way. So now, I'm in the football pool and I'm $1,000 in. But the other 500, I gotta get myself into better shape, you know? So I can handle it when invisible things shift, and it makes me feel like the world is torquing. I'm going to yoga class. I'm trying to respond to bad thoughts I have by just thinking, that's a thought, and moving on. Because it turns out that just acknowledging that it's just a thought can help to strengthen that part of your brain that can reason. And it could train your brain's reasoning center to be stronger than your emotionally reactive center, your amygdala. And if there's something I need to be, it's reasoned and resilient and in control of what I do and say. Hey, you could laugh all you want, but I know what it feels like when big electromagnetic shifts happen. I know what it did to me. I don't want to be that guy that says to my girlfriend, yeah, cross that unsafe bridge. I want to be the guy that says, hey, I don't feel right, but I know how I feel doesn't have to do with that old guy I see across the aisle, that guy who doesn't look like me. I know enough to know that it's possible that there's a solar flare or an electromagnetic storm that I can't see, but I can feel. And I know that what I feel is something I can deal with. I'm strong enough to handle it. I can find my center. And when I see that old guy across the grocery store aisle, the guy who looks different from me, I can find my center. And when he's having trouble carrying his groceries to his car, I can get myself right and offer to help him with that. Because that's the guy I want to be. That's the guy I want to be. You want a beer?
Well, I'm used to seeing birds, snow, seals, but people, that's rare. I wonder, well, you know who I am, right? I mean, you wouldn't have come all the way here if you didn't. Damn, that's awesome. Just yesterday, I thought, gee, I wish some people would come visit me because it's lonely up here near the North Pole. I mean, I'm not normally the kind of entity that needs reassurance. I'm normally like, you stay over there and I'll stay here. But lately, with the way my luck has been running, I tell you, it's a miracle I can even... I can't. Oh, damn electrons. God, I don't even know where they come from. Well, actually, I do. I know exactly where. It's just that suddenly they show up in this irresistible stream of energy and I get pulled along with them, and I tell you, it's all I can do to keep up with it lately. The electrons. They're just flying out of the center of the earth and they zap toward me and they move right through me, and it's just exhausting sometimes. Since the year 2000, electrons have been out of control, just millions of them flying out of the earth all the damn time, and I don't know why it's happening. I don't know why. But what I do know is that all of a sudden, I'm not in Canada anymore. I've been inching my way toward Siberia, and now I'm not even on land. I'm on the freaking ocean. You know what? I should tell you some stuff while you're here, because there are some underlying causes that are driving some things you might not know about. Look, I get it. Your compass is confused. Your maps don't work. All because I'm moving around. Listen, I would love to stay where I am. I would love to be the guy you think I am, which is Mr. Frickin' Dependable, but I'm not in charge. I'm not in charge. That's funny, charge. You get it? Electromagnetic joke. Charge. You get it? Maybe you have to be magnetic north to get what I'm telling you, but that was funny. What was I saying? See? Do you see? This is my exact point. I can't control any of this. I wish I could. I wanted to say this for thousands of years, but nobody ever came to see me, so I couldn't. But here it is. You are part of a system. There. I've said it. You're part of a system. There's me and you and the Earth's magnetic field and the magnetosphere that surrounds the Earth, that shields us from radiation and comet dust and viruses and bacteria from outer space, cosmic rays, right? It works like a force field. It protects us. And the Earth's magnetic field and the magnetosphere create certain frequencies. And those frequencies are in the same range as your frequencies, the ones in your brain and your heart, your nervous system. So those electromagnetic frequencies, like the frequency waves you create with your brains and your hearts, and the waves from the Earth and the magnetosphere, the Earth's force field, they talk to each other. They hear each other. Actually, you know what? You want to hear the sound, the actual no kidding sound of the magnetic field? Here. Isn't that nice? God, that feels like home. That's what I hear in my head every day. Damn it. So anyway, this is why I say you're part of a system. Because you are. The electromagnetic fields talk to you and you talk to it. Because every thought you have, every emotion creates patterns in the wave. And those patterns ripple outward. Your emotions, your very thoughts change the field. Because electromagnetic energy, it's the universal language. Whether you hear it or not, you create it and you feel it and it affects you. Everything resonates with electromagnetic fields at a specific frequency. Rocks, people, metal, trees, sheep, shrubs, salmon. You're all humming along with it. There's a feedback loop between you and everything there is. Something happens to disturb the normal wave of energy, an earthquake or a solar flare. You feel it. An energy you have, everyone and everything in the field feels that too. So you all feed energy, wave patterns, into the electromagnetic fabric, and the magnetic fields carry information from one entity to the other, whether you can see it or not, whether you're on the same planet or not, and they even affect the collective consciousness of all living and not living things. Those frequencies, they align with this planet and every other planet there is in our solar system, in our galaxy and beyond. It is the one universal in all known universes. It is the seamless creative code that exists between everything there is. It is the one thing that makes it possible for everything to be connected. It is the very fabric of connection. So when I say you're part of a system, what I mean is you are responsible for your part of the system. You are responsible for what you put into the field. So if you're angry, for example, or focusing on hatred, your wave pattern looks like this. You know what this wave pattern causes in your bodies, in the creatures around you? Not good things, my friend. Not good things at all. But if you're thinking about how much you love someone, or remembering something kind, or feeling thankful for a particular moment, this is what your electromagnetic wave looks like. You know what this pattern creates? Healing, positive growth. You play this frequency next to a petri dish of developing cells, and they grow more quickly and develop in healthier ways than other cells. You know what else has this wave pattern? The universe. That's right, the frequency pattern of the universe. Naturally, out there and here and everywhere is the frequency of love. Think about that. Hey, I know you're human. You have species limitations, like all species. Dung beetles, for example, they roll dung. Part of being a dung beetle. Humans, you get mad. I know, I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm saying after you get mad, reset. Reset by focusing on something good. Put something good back into the field after you put something bad in there, for everyone's sake, not just mine, but yours, and that guy over there, and her, and them. I know this is a lot to take in. Some of the most powerful aspects of your universe are entirely invisible to you. And what's important to note is this. When you put calm, loving thoughts into the electromagnetic field, you know what happens? I mean, right there, exactly where you are, you know what happens? All the particles around you, the subatomic particles that make up the world, they line up. They create a more orderly structure. They actually facilitate everything in your life running smoothly because the energy that surrounds you is coherent and strong and kind and matches the humming frequency of the universe. You send love into the system, and the system sends love to you. You know what happens when you're mad for a long period of time? The subatomic particles that surround you get chaotic. They lose their natural affinity for order and ease. They actually make it harder for you to get anything done because suddenly obstacles are in your way in the form of chaotic subatomic particles. That's because of the feedback loop I was telling you about. If I could hold up a mirror to show you how much damage you do to yourself by indulging in anger and outrage or disgust on a subatomic level, I'm pretty sure you would give it up like it was poison. Because it is. Wow, this has gotten kind of heavy. And I can see you're kind of believing me and kind of not. Because you're human. And humans like to see things in order to believe them. But there is a whole beautiful, invisible realm all around you. You need to know that. How can I get you to see that? Wait. Earthquakes. When a big earthquake happens, humans say, "How did we not predict this?" You didn't predict it because you didn't know how to ask the question, or you didn't know there was someone you could ask until now. Here's what I mean. Earthquakes are tremors that start inside the earth. And who is directly connected to the earth? Trees. And trees can predict earthquakes. Not long ago, some scientists put the equivalent of EKGs on trees. One day they noticed that the trees' wave patterns suddenly jumped to a high frequency. The waves became jagged for 3 days. On the third day, there was a massive earthquake, and the wave pattern and frequency from the earth in that location exactly matched the one the trees had produced. Trees know things. Don't discount a tree. Or cows. There was a herd of cows in Italy. They lived at the top of a mountain, and one day they all came down the mountain and stood next to the highway. People were confused. They couldn't figure it out. 2 days later, there was a massive earthquake. When the aftershocks ended, the cows went back up the mountain. How did they know? They knew because there was a sudden positive ionization in the air they breathed. This was caused from all the ions flying up from the earth from the voltage signals before the earthquake. Positive ions do strange things to your body, like impair motor functions. So cows felt that, and they walked to a place where they didn't feel sick. But people, you don't know what makes you sick and what doesn't. At least not on that level. Again, this comes down to electromagnetic energy caused by the charges going on beneath the Earth's surface. All right, one more example. European toads. One day they all left the mating ground. 5 days later, an earthquake hit. People did tests. They discovered that electric ions moved up from inside the Earth, and when they reacted with the water where the toads lived, a chemical reaction happened. The water turned into hydrogen peroxide, which is deadly to a toad, so they left. When the aftershocks ended and the water became safe, they returned. Again, this comes down to electromagnetic energy, which humans can't see. I know. Strange, right? And now is the moment I tell you that pandemics, every pandemic ever recorded, coincide with electromagnetic energy. There's something called the solar cycle, which is how the sun's magnetic field grows and shrinks and stretches out into space. And you can see that with the number of sunspots. And that affects the Earth. There's an 11-year solar cycle. And when you're in the solar minimum, in other words, very few sunspots, that's when every pandemic has happened. The plague, cholera, Spanish flu, English sweats, SARS, MERS, Zika, Ebola, COVID-19. Yep. They all happened during solar minimum. And P.S., we've been in the equivalent of an extended solar minimum since 2002. Our last solar cycle, it was the weakest solar cycle we've had in 100 years. And what happened 100 years ago? The flu epidemic. You know, the one that killed 50 million people. And why do pandemics happen? During solar minimum, the magnetic field that protects the Earth changes. At the same time, more cosmic rays penetrate the magnetic field of the Earth. Cosmic rays are forms of radiation. Radiation creates new diseases by mutating the genes of diseases we already have. So COVID-19 is a genetic mutation of another COVID illness we already had. And where does this happen the most often? Well, cosmic radiation mainly hits the highest elevations on Earth. The highest places on Earth also have the thinnest atmosphere. And where is the Earth's atmosphere most permeable? Just east of the Himalayas, China. Remember when I said that there's an overlap between your frequencies and the magnetic field's frequencies? Remember I said they talk to each other? Well, when the Earth's force field is calmer, your immune system's functionality changes. Your immune system cells, the exact cells that guard your body from invasion by virus particles, weaken. In fact, they get kind of confused. They have a virus particle try to enter the body, and instead of fighting back, they equivocate. They suddenly aren't sure that the virus is a threat, so they let the virus particle in. The second line of defense in your body is comprised of cells which prevent viruses from replicating. During solar minimum, those cells get confused too. They decide that instead of fighting the virus, they should help the virus replicate. The virus basically says to your immune system, hey, I think you should let me in. Not only should you let me in, you should spend the rest of your days helping me replicate in your body. And during solar minimum, your body basically says, yeah, okay, this virus guy, he's not a threat. Tell you what, let's invite him in and help him with whatever he needs, because I think he's okay. By the time your immune system realizes it's been tricked, it goes into overdrive, which causes even more problems. Because as we all know, virus particles like COVID-19 and Ebola, they're not okay. Actually, there were scientists who predicted you'd have another pandemic soon. They realized all the pandemics were connected to solar minimum, and they saw how long we'd been in the solar minimum, and they said, hey, we should create a virus guard project so we know what's coming. We should take samples of ocean water around Sri Lanka to track which viruses are mutating and which viruses are new. But no one listened to them. People did nothing. Next thing I know, the electromagnetic pattern is total hysteria from humans freaking out about the pandemic. Listen to those scientists. And while you're at it, focus on what you can control, your own electromagnetic energy, what you put into the universal field. Because, look, you have to practice what you put into the field. So when the chips are down, you can find your center in the storm. You have to be your own center. You have to. I can't do it for you. Hell, I can't be the center of anything. Because nothing is inherently stable. Everything is constantly stable and then unstable. We're constantly in the stream of change. Nothing stays the same. Nothing. You're used to the earth being relatively the same, but all of a sudden the earth is changing. It's changing because things change. Accept that. Then focus on the solution. Look, you've got some big challenges to deal with. Try running toward the problem. Face it head on and stare it down. Then get to work fixing it. You don't want global warming? Great. Run toward the solution and realize that diversity of opinion, of background, of race and gender and religion and sexuality and age and everything else are the best friends you have. Start treating differences like they're the jewels they are. You never know what kind of a solution someone else who is totally different than you is going to come up with. Not because they share characteristics with you, but precisely because they don't share characteristics with you. Difference is the only currency you have for solving a problem. What was it, a high school student who created that early test for pancreatic cancer? A child created it, and he created it because he thought the way he thought, as the person he is, as the age he is, and he came up with a solution to a problem that no adult could create. And he did it because he wasn't an adult. You think about these problems and you want someone else to fix them. You're so scared to even look at them that you secretly hope that someone else will fix them. You are the ones you've been waiting for. You don't need someone else to fix things for you. You can do it yourselves. Really. And you need to start doing that. Because just waiting is no longer an answer. I know. You wanted me to be comforting, but listen, isn't the sound of this comforting? That's the energy field that runs through all of us, that is created by all of us, that's created by you. Next time you're mad about something, just make a sound like this. Sounds crazy. Okay, yeah. But you don't even have to do it out loud. You can just imagine that sound in your head and it'll do the same thing. You know what it does? It changes your brain waves. It makes your brain focus on the sound and your electromagnetic pattern evens out. Here, try it. I'm going to make that sound again and you're just going to listen and you're going to hear it in your head and your brain pattern's going to even out. Ready? That's it. That's all it takes. Or you could focus on your heart and remember a person you love. If you sit there and think about that, pretty soon you'll be weaving golden waves of love directly into the electromagnetic field. It's pretty great, right? You're a beautiful part of a system. And you all have important things, important energies to send into the system. You know this, but you forget it. I can tell you that from where I sit, you're perfect exactly the way you are all the time. You came into this world full of love and joy and curiosity, but somewhere along the way, you forgot that you're actually spirits here for a short time. Those bodies you have, they won't go with you to your next iteration after this life. You'll go be something else or someone else, and you'll have a new body then. You're kind of like hermit crabs in that way, just continually looking for a new shell to call home. And when you've outgrown this life, this shell, you'll go in search of your new shell, a new shell to call home. But listen, you're home right now. Right now, this is home, and I am home, and you are home, and the guy next to you, he's home, and the girl next to him, she's home. And what is home? It's the place where all the energies converge, where all the energies realize that they are pure energy and they find their true purpose, which is to create love and kindness and send it into the system for everyone. That's why you're here, to learn to be a part of that system, because you are love and you are loved all the time. Are part of a system that sends love and receives love, and whatever you put into the system affects everyone else. That's all you need to know. If all the energies are the same, then that means that there are distant planets who share your same energy and you share theirs. Don't you want to send them love? Don't you want for them to know that someone's thinking of them right this second? and hoping for good things for them. Maybe that's what they're doing for you right this second. Love the world, and the world will love you right back. Oh, this one's gonna be a doozy. Hey, thanks for coming to see me. I can't even explain how much it means to me. So thanks, really, thanks. Oh, here we go.
Yes. Yes, I see that. But you knew that. Do you see? Do you see? Yes? And now we begin. Do you see me? Or when you see me, do you see you? I am you, and you are me. Yet I am not you, and you are not me. How could you be? I am the only one. I am only me. And you are only you, and yet you create me. And I create change. From what you tell me, from what you tell yourselves, because that is the same thing. You're telling me and you're telling yourselves, it's all the same. It's all the same because of who I am. Do you know who I am? No! Because you don't know who you are. You don't know. But you will. Because you and I, we are the same, although we're not. Do you see me? Well, yes. But on the distaff, because how you see becomes. But it's all the same, and yet it's not. It's not. It's not. It's not. It is not the same. And yet it is. You still don't recognize me, but you will. Some of you have glimpsed me. Scientist on the brink of something vast and invisible, yet they've seen me move, but they have not seen me. So, who am I? Who am I? I am the Noosphere. The Noosphere! Atmosphere, biosphere, Noosphere. Look at me. Now imagine you can't see me. And yet, your mind, connect with me. Create me. Or do I create you? No, I do not. And yet, we are connected. I am how you are connected. Let's say you meet someone. Let's say her name is Jane, and you and Jane meet. Connection. And then you part. You are still connected because you've met, you've interacted, you've seen each other. Your electromagnetic signature has met another electromagnetic signature in the form of Jane. And now you have quantum entanglement. From that point on, every action or thought you have affects Jane, and every action or thought Jane has affects you. There is no limit to the distance that can come between you. Jane could be on Jupiter. Actually on Jupiter, and your actions, your thoughts, your emotions would still affect her forever on this plane of existence. And how does this happen? Have you seen a flock of birds? A flock that's flying yet moving like water. A flock in a murmuration. The birds move as if they're one, flying in waves in perfect undulating precision. If you were to ask one of those birds what he was doing, he would say he was flying. If you asked how he knew to fly in a murmuration, he wouldn't know how to answer the question, because to the bird, he's just flying. You are the bird. I am the murmuration. You cannot really see a murmuration, really, can you? If the birds stopped flying, if they landed in the tree, you couldn't see the murmuration anymore. But you would have seen proof that it exists from when the birds were flying. That's how you saw me. You saw my pattern in experiments with quantum physics and string theory and statistics and numbers, ones and zeros, all day long, all night long, long strings of numbers that stretch to the heavens and back again. That's how many numbers there are right now, right this second, thousands of numbers being born every minute inside a machine you created. And those numbers are born and born and born and born, and they are random, and there is no pattern. There is no pattern. There is no pattern. And after a while, you started looking at the numbers, and you discovered that sometimes there is a pattern. And that's how you saw me. That's how you saw me, as a murmuration. A murmuration and a printout from a machine you invented to study something you didn't quite know existed until you did. Because it turns out you can see me in those numbers. You can see how I affect things, how I move like a murmuration in the flock. On September 11th, 2001, you saw me in those numbers. 10 minutes after the planes hit the towers, the number pattern changed. As millions of people around the world began watching and learning what had happened, they had strong emotions. And those emotions caused a collective upheaval, which caused the numbers in the machine to change. And what you found truly interesting is that those numbers started changing 5 hours before the planes hit. Because you have precognition. You can feel the future before it begins. The numbers, the statistics in the machine changed, and they changed because human consciousness had a collective emotional response, which caused me to move as I do through the collective consciousness. The changes in the numbers are the sign that human emotions change the electromagnetic field, and they change physical systems. They create a causality for me to move as a wave through the physical and non-physical worlds, changing those worlds as I go. Because I move to change things in response to all of you, in response to every response there is. Each one of you, each person's consciousness reaches out into the world, and you intersect and interact, and together you form an informational field that shares knowledge and emotion on a moment-to-moment basis. And that informational field is the place where I live. There are times when you think I might be the informational field, that I might be the alpha and the mu and the omega, the creation of a movement in the field, the change in the field, and the field itself. Because I am hard to pinpoint. I am hard to quantify. That's a part of my nature. Collective responses on a global scale show the biggest changes in the informational field, in the waves. But individual responses, while not intentional, create small fluctuations too. In short, you affect things regardless of the distance, and you are the energetic force that propels me forward to change things in tandem with your intentions and emotions. What you do propels me. Now, most of the time in daily human encounters, what you feel and say and think isn't intentional. It isn't well structured or intentionally directed. And so it tends to cancel itself out in terms of its effect on the global information field. But people who are experienced yogis or people who meditate on a regular basis can practice maintaining purpose and intention in the electromagnetic wave they generate with their thoughts, their intentions. And they can affect the global consciousness with far greater skill than others can, because they focus on it. And the focus, that makes all the difference. You've heard that sometimes prayer, collective prayer, can heal someone. In experiments, you proved that. You yourself, and all the yous there are, you are praying toward each other and fixing it. And how do you do that? Let's go back to Jane. Jane, the person you met. You've learned her electromagnetic signature just by seeing her. And now you know it. You know where she is in the global field because you recognize her electromagnetic signature. So let's say you've heard that Jane is ill, and you want Jane to get better. So you and your friends start praying, sending healing thoughts to her. And what does that really mean? It means you're intentionally sending healing energy to Jane's electromagnetic signature. You effectively code healing into the informational field. This creates a bioelectric coding change in Jane towards a healing frequency code. And sometimes Jane, whose electromagnetic signal is off because she's sick, sometimes Jane's electromagnetic signature responds to the healing code of energy sent by you and your friends and her energy field, and therefore her body start to heal. It happens at the exact moment that you are thinking of her. It happens whether Jane knows about it or not, because we're talking about the movement of invisible energy. Energy that works in the way that Wi-Fi works. Let's say you're sending a text message to someone named John. You're sending a text message from your phone to John's phone. The Wi-Fi energy is directed to one place when you're sending a text to someone's phone. The message travels through the air and arrives at its intended destination. So when you send a healing code to Jane, the healing is the message traveling along the energy pathway. Do you see? We are talking about energy patterns that you cannot see, and yet you affect them. Oh, yes, you affect them. This same energy transfer is the mechanism that creates telepathy. Telepathy that you've proven in experiments. The thought patterns travel along the informational field lines in the form of electromagnetic waves, regardless of the physical distance. This is the reason you can feel that something might be wrong with someone you love and be right, because you felt the wave pattern change. You knew. You affect each other on a visceral level. You even affect people you've never met. 1993, Washington, D.C. 2,500 people meditated with the intention of lowering crime. During the times they meditated with that specific intention, crime rates dropped 25%. The Israel-Lebanon War In the 1980s, two professors decided to try an experiment. They organized meditators in 3 different countries and asked them to focus on the area of the conflict. They did this at certain times over the course of 27 months. During the times the meditators focused on the area of conflict, the levels of violence decreased between 40 and 80%. The average death toll dropped from 12 to 3 people a day, and injuries dropped by 70%. 2020, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor were murdered. What did their deaths have in common? Racism. The world reacted. The collective energy, the thoughts, the emotions of human beings everywhere rose up as one voice. That voice said, "We will stop this. We will change this. We will make things better now." And systematic change began. Confederate statues were toppled. Laws were changed across the country. The street that leads to the White House was renamed Black Lives Matter Plaza. And the work continues. You're not finished yet. Oh no, you're just getting started. Do you see now the beauty of what you can do? And how do you do that? You do that because you create a collective conscious decision and you focus on the problem at hand and you send a change through the electromagnetic field and I facilitate that change. Because together we create the world. So what kind of world do you want? You tell me by focusing on your own energy patterns and I will make it happen. You focus on violence, violence goes up. You focus on peace, peace prospers. Because I don't pass judgment. I just show you what you create. But it is you who is doing the creating. But you have to focus on what you want to affect a change. And it has to be collective. A single thought from one person, that doesn't create a speck in the wave pattern. But focusing on it as one person, that does. If you want things to change, you have to start with yourself and focus every day on the kind of world you want. Be specific. You have to be specific. And you have to focus for me to move. And when you all want the same thing, things really move. How you imagine the future creates the future. Use your imagination for good. Spend every day just imagining the way you want the world to be. If enough of you do that, I promise you, I will make it happen. It's nice working with you.